G'day guys, how you going? Casey here from Off the Mark Fantasy, here doing a solo preview of round 3 and everything to come. Come on! Hello and welcome back to Off the Mark. I'm Casey. No Mason today, just me, unfortunately, for any of the Mason fans out. There's a lot of them. Mason167 at GM, Twitter X, all of that jazz. But no, just me today. So here going through everything to do with round 3, and then we've got all your favourites: Koppel Flop, Theodore Yield. Weather Watch is here as well, and of course Mason has sent me his captains and all of his information that he's got. Everything you need for round 3. So without further ado, I thought I'd just like to mention that it comes to this point of the year when I do a solo episode that I really just appreciate how important Mason is to this podcast. He does a lot of the research. He does all of his stuff for himself. He has his fixture scale, hardness, whatever you want to call it, all that sort of stuff that hasn't brought in this year. But the most important thing is he takes all the talking. He does. I just come in here and there with a couple... I wouldn't even call them good insights, just a couple of insights here and there. And he does all of the editing and he puts everything up online for you on your Spotify, on your Apple, on your YouTube. He does all of that, edits this. So he's at a gig right now. I'm going to send this through to him later. He's going to do all the editing up for me and all of that sort of stuff. So just thought it would be nice to mention how important he is to this podcast and how honoured I am that he's asked me to join him along. And with any luck, I do this solo episode. I do him proud. So first of all, as we usually do on a Thursday, we go straight into the news of what's happened over the week, what's kind of going on, and start with our cop or flop, because that's a really important part of, fantasy, is who you're going to get, who you're going to trade in, who you might not want to pick, and all that sort of stuff. So big news for the week is that obviously you've got your Christian Petrarca and Connor Rosie, probably the two biggest names that everybody has, along with Milan Murdoch's gone down, all with hamstrings. So pretty unfortunate news there. Some other names for you that have gone down is your Miles Bergman's. It's noted that Jordan Dawson's going to be missing this clash today against the Cats later on today. Liberatore, if anybody had him, a couple players out here and there, just everyone's gone down. Toby Nankervis has gone down with a ruck, so there might be a Tiger ruck we could look at. But yeah, it's been an interesting week for Hammies, and everyone's tearing him left, right, and centre. It's no good. Some blame the faster paced games. Some blame opening round, how teams are playing earlier. I don't know what there is to blame. I think it's just natural selection at its finest. But it certainly makes you wonder about those players that have had soft tissue injuries before that people are looking at, people are bringing in, and people are talking about, which leads me quite nicely into the cop or flop. Mason's got his here, but I'll go mine first. My cop for this week, Mason has written his premiums. I want to dig a little bit deeper into that. So my cop for this week is Josh Dacos. Now, the reason Josh Dacos is the cop over someone like a Zorko or I'm speaking exclusively defenders here. Obviously, you're going into your Max Holmes, your Nick Dacos if you didn't have him, all that sort of stuff. But in defence, where everyone has Rosie, you might not have the DPP luxury. I think it's really important you nail who you're going to. Now, we talk about all these hamstring injuries. We talk about all these soft tissue injuries. Who is someone who we know who's had a lot of soft tissue injuries in the past that everyone seems to be bringing in this year, or this week even better? And that's none other than Zork Mode! Mason's favourite Zork Mode button, all of that sort of stuff. Dane Zorko has had history with hamstrings, history with soft tissue issues. Yes, he's turned it up. He's 37 now. He's done all right. The last few years, all of that, whatever they call it, whatever they're doing over there in Brisbane seems to be working all right. Some say dry needling, all of that sort of stuff. But Zorko has a history of this sort of stuff. And it makes me wonder. Now, his matchup for the next 2 games, don't get me wrong, are next to none, especially for the halfback role. I mean, he goes St Kilda at Marvel under the roof. If it's raining, we'll have to look at that for Weather Watch. Into Collingwood at the G, who give up a lot of points. And then they play North and then Melbourne, who we all know give up a lot of points, both of those teams. So don't get me wrong, Dane Zorko, absolute gun, will score, should score, probably will score really highly. Probably will even outscore outscore Josh Dacos. But I just think with all of these injuries going out, is it a trend? Is it just one bad week? We don't know, but I personally don't like to take that risk, especially when I know that there's a bloke who's a little bit cheaper, not by much, but I think about 70k is a little bit cheaper, who's scored just as well. Scored 141 against the Saints in opening round and scored 102 against the Crows in a hard matchup in a loss, and now go up against the Giants, who we also know give up a bunch of points. I mean, it only looked back to Zane Zorko from a couple of weeks ago, or last week even, when he scored a 132 against the Giants. Now, Josh Dacos, absolute gun. Yes, be wary. The Pies have some ins this week, probably coming back, like your Jeremy Howe and your Moore, that probably both come back in this week. Pushes probably him is probably the first to go back into the midfield, but now that's not necessarily the worst thing for Josh Dacos, where we know he can score massively. You go back to last year, you don't have to wonder. Like, he had scores of 119, 101, 128, 113, 132 even, all predominantly in the midfield, in the wing, not necessarily in back. Yes, he played a lot of half back last year, but I don't think that there's too much to worry about with Josh Dacos. Now, he's my cop, Zorko my flop, obviously. Now, hey, Mason has said that his flop is Dan Houston this week, who a lot of people are bringing in. Now, he's pretty good. He scored a 119 in the opening round and then backed it up. Sorry, he scored a 120 in opening round and then backed it up with a 119 in round one for us. So, pretty good. And then comes up against the same team as Josh, the Giants. So now, albeit not as good as a matchup as Zorko, but I just think that Houston as well, Mason has said, Howe and Moore to come back in this week. Both take kick-ins and add to the defence, taking points away from Houston, the only outperforming last year back there. The only one outperforming last year back there. So if you've missed him at this point, take the loss and go against him. If you've got him, don't worry, but be ready to get off soon. As per usual, I disagree with Mason's flop entirely. I actually think Houston's going to be scoring quite nicely, even without Howe and Moore, just so because of how much better Collingwood have been playing with the ball in Dan Houston's hands. Now, we saw him at Port put 3 back-to-back 90-plus years together. There's no reason he can't still go highly. And priced at 8.17, I still think he's a bit unders. Even if he goes at 90 instead of his 119, which he's currently going at, that's still 10, maybe 11 points up on what he is. And 90 for me, I see as an absolute worst. I still reckon he goes 100 as he has been. Nothing to say he can't. But then again, Mason's not here. He can't defend him. So there's probably some stuff wrong with him. He's on Mason's flop. If you're a Mason fan over Casey, which is understandable, even though I'm outperforming him this year, that's all going to change this week, by the way. I still think he's a good pick, but Mason's be worried. So take that with a grain of salt. Now, on to field or yield. One of my favourite, purely because I do most of it. But here we are. We are faced with some rookie issues this week. Now, we've got a couple on the bye, especially in the defence, like your Lockie Jacks and your Jai Sarongs and all that sort of stuff. So for a lot of people, there won't be any questions. It's just you field who you have. If that's a Blackiston, if that's a Grill, if that's a Lindsay from West Coast, if he gets named again, if that's Selwood's on the bye as well. If that's probably what you're stuck with. Whoever you had on your bench, you're playing. It's as simple as that. And the midfield's pretty similar. So you've got like the likes of Jagger Smith, Blamires, and then Murdoch goes down with an injury. Some people had Jack Carroll, but Blamires and Jagger goes above him. Full stop. If you had Watkins, now he's a pretty good trade-in target this week. Unders, he's a rookie, does all right, plays it well. So I don't mind it. If you want to take on the Petrarca and the Rosé, but personally I won't be. But Watkins, I reckon, outperforms someone like a Blamires. Now, Blamires plays against Essendon, easy team. So this is your starting Jagger, obviously, and then it's Blamires versus Watkins. I think that the fact that Rosie went down in the fourth quarter and Jack Watkins had a 50-point fourth quarter, yes, they were playing Essendon, yes, there was some waxing time, but he went straight into the midfield. He had the third most CBAs for the game for the Power. Ollie Wines comes back, but I don't think Jack Watkins has too much to worry about. I still think he scores quite highly, quite well, even with Ollie Wines coming back into that midfield. That midfield role for him seems pretty solid. Don't mind it at all. So I would probably personally be fielding Jagger, then I'd be going Watkins, then Blamires, and then Jack Carroll if you've got a last resort There's not too many other rookies in the midfield that I think we're looking at. Maybe a Sherry from Fremantle, not North Melbourne. He's the young guy, Christopher Sherry from Freo, plays in the midfield. I think he's in mid-forward anyway, so I don't have him in front of me. But yeah, moving on to the forward line. I mean, rucks are rucks. Moving on to the forward line, you've got players like Dev Robinson, Braden Cook, Leo Lombard, Todd Marshall even. If you're like anybody in the forward line, you've got Buderick, you've got Lombard, and you've probably got Petrarca who you have to trade out anyway. So once again, two on the bench, you're just playing everybody who plays. Field of yield, pretty easy for this round 3 bye, which sucks because that's one of my favourite segments and it's done so soon. But nevertheless, bring on Weather Watch. Now, you look behind me and I'll see a lot of rain clouds. It's interesting because there's a game on Sunday. It'll be interesting to see what Mason's got to say about the Sunday games, but there is never been a week so important for Weather Watch like this one. Maybe opening round last year when we had a couple games cancelled, but this is pretty close. Now, lots to get through, so let's start off with tonight. You might be listening tomorrow on a Friday. Tonight being the Thursday game between Geelong and Adelaide at GMHBA Stadium. Now, Mason has given this a 4 out of 10 Weather Watch rating. Now, take it as you will, but 4 to 15 millimetres of rain with a chance of a thunderstorm and possible damaging winds in the evening, whew, that is a big watch. I'm not sure when he wrote this up. I'm pretty sure he had to do this today or maybe yesterday, but I'll tell you what, Weather Watch has been pretty important recently. I just looked back to last week when Mason had the Giants St Kilda game. He goes, if that game gets suspended and you only get half a game out of Jack Sinclair, captain, I'm the reason. All of that sort of stuff. Jack Sinclair scored a 122. Lockie Ash scored a 130. Would have been awesome to captain him anyway. But it was postponed, so Weather Watch did its thing. However, the GWS game this week, Collingwood versus GWS at Marvel? Mate, have you seen a better Weather Watch rating than Mason's given this one a 10 out of 10 because, it's at Marvel. Awesome. So, Thursday night, Geelong, Adelaide, 4. Friday night, Collingwood, GWS, 10. Hello, captains. Hello, Nick Dacos. Hello, outside Josh Dacos. Hello, even further outside Dan Houston. Hello, you shouldn't be trading into him, Lockie Ash. Hello, you shouldn't have him, Lockie Whitfield. Hello, Jordan De Goey for your draft. All of that sort of stuff. 10 out of 10. That is the stuff we love to see here at Off the Marks Weather Watch. Now, third game, we move on to Saturday. It's St Kilda versus Brisbane. Oh, guess what? It's also at Marvel. Whoa, mate, I'm telling you, Marvel is absolutely outstanding for the Weather Watch. We've got 2 10 out of 10 games, and we're only up to the first game on Saturday. That is next level. I'm extremely happy to say that, look out for your St Kildas versus Brisbane. Look at you, Dane Hamstring Awareness Zorko. Look at you, Samuel Flanders. Look at you, Nasiah Wanganeen Miller. And look at you, Jack Sinclair. Look out, you Jack Carroll, rookie on your bench. Chuck an E on that. Have him as your emergency. Bye-bye, Jack Watkins. Bye-bye, Tomba Myers. Goodbye, Jagger Smith, if this bloke scores a ton. Highly unlikely, and that's why we have him on our bench. But hey, can't deny the Weather Watch 10 out of 10 score rating. Pretty good. Now we move on to the next game, which is Freo versus Richmond. And how do you look at this game, Mason? Well, Casey, 15 to 50 millimetres of rain. So remember the maximum amount of rain is the minimum that will pour down here. So thunderstorms are a chance in the evening. Hopefully it's after the game because this is 3:45. But there's been talks. This is the same or different. This is the same hurricane cyclone that hit Gold Coast and Brisbane in opening round. It might even be the leftovers from last year's opening round score where we saw 2 games get suspended and moved on. Now, I don't think it's going to happen here. But whew, if you've got some boys in this Freo-Richmond matchup that love a tackle, Sam Grill, Jack Ross. Hopefully Andy Brayshaw, because Mason and I still have him as a point of different players. This could be an awesome game for them. But also, on the contrary, look out for those guys who take contested marks and take marks down the line, like your Luke Jackson, who some people might be targeting because Richmond, as we know with Nankirk is going out, don't have a ruckman. They've got the rookie, Oscar Hayes or something like that. I'm not quite sure of what his name is, but this would be interesting. Does Luke Jackson go big? Does he not? Some people are looking at your Murphy Reeds and even an outside Shy Bolton as forward line trade targets in a week like this, with a game like this, with an off-the-mark fantasy weather watch rating of 2 out of 10. Gee, now, we're not the most famous podcast. We're not the most followed by any means. But we know one thing, and that's weather. And now, I would not be trading into those blokes with a 2 out of 10 off the mark fantasy weather watch rating. Anyway, moving on to the next game, Saturday night. Look out. Essendon versus North Melbourne. 7:05 p.m. Adelaide time, as always, at Marvel Stadium. 10 out of 10 weather watch rating. You love to see it. It's another Marvel game. And now, may I just mention, Essendon versus North Melbourne has probably one of the weirdest, strongest rivalries that I've ever seen, because both teams haven't been too relevant in the last 10 years for finals, at least. Well, Essendon for the last 20 for that matter. Sorry, Dill Ball. But I remember as a kid, I went to watch Port Adelaide play Carlton at the MCG in the morning. In the late afternoon, I should say. Early afternoon. It was awesome. And then, but there was only 16,000 people there at the MCG. And I was like, Mum, what is this? I came to the MCG expecting huge crowds, roaring atmosphere, and unmissable once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be at the MCG to watch my power play. And then we thought, let's catch another game. 7:30 Melbourne time, Essendon versus North Melbourne at Marvel Stadium, or even Etihad back then when it was. Now, there wasn't much going on. Essendon were pretty low. North Melbourne were probably even lower. And that was one of the best games I've ever watched. Ben Brown kicked 9 in a losing game. That's like Gary Ablett against Hawthorn in 1983 or 86 or whatever it was, in the greatest grand final of all time. Kicked that much in a losing game? It was unreal. Essendon home game as well, so the crowd was going wild, real close. I'd never seen anything like it. One of those games. You know, Zaha Rakas was playing, who we all know has that famous first goal. But boy, oh boy, in the words of BT, boy, oh boy, was that a game. And is this a rivalry? Always close. Tip the under if you're going, tip the line to be within 1 to 40, whoever you're going for. 1 to 39, this is going to be a close and a good game. Hopefully, then again, Brad Scott said we're all going to die at some point in his press conference today, so God knows what's going on in his head and what's going on with the Essendon Football Club at the moment. Anyway, moving on to Port Adelaide versus West Coast at Adelaide Oval. He's given it a 9 out of 10. I'll take that, considering all the dark, stormy clouds around me on a Thursday. They'll move on. They'll move on to Freo. They'll move on to Perth, where Freo Richmond will get drenched. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm spending 6 minutes on Weather Watch, and this is because I started the podcast pretty early. So I've got to buffer a little bit until the teams get through. But nevertheless, I hope you've been enjoyed. What's that? That's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. Casey, I was pretty sure there was 7 games going on this weekend. You're right. There is one last game on the Sunday afternoon, 2:45 Adelaide time. Carlton versus Melbourne at the MCG, the home of footy. Mason has given it an 8 out of 10. Maybe rain in the morning, so it could be a bit dewy. But otherwise, perfect weather. Now that, my friends, is how you do Weather Watch. Off the mark. So let's just recap, shall we? Geelong versus Adelaide, GMHBA, 4 out of 10. Collingwood versus Giants, Marvel, 10 out of 10. St Kilda versus Brisbane, Marvel, 10 out of 10. Freo versus Richmond at Optus, 2 out of 10. Essendon versus North Melbourne at Marvel, 10 out of 10. Port Adelaide versus West Coast at Adelaide Oval, 9 out of 10. Carlton versus Melbourne at the MCG, 8 out of 10. Rightio. It's been one hell of a podcast so far. I've been rambling on for about 20 minutes about God knows what, who knows who, and where goes which. But now to the important part. To the captains. Mason's top 8 captains for this week. And he's done it, as always, controversially to me. So, let's get into it, shall we? Number 8 for him, Josh Dacos. Reckons he can go 100 to 110. Should be good this week. Just an 88 against the Giants last year. But has shown his ceiling. Good VC option if you don't have some of the popular ones. Number 7, Andy Brayshaw. Great last week after a shocking round 1. Should get around the tackles in a rainy slog. Probably not wanting to get there though. You should have enough of the above options to go for. So let's look at those who they are. Number 6, Nick Dacos. He reckons he'll get a 115 to a 125. Should be great here. Not sure whether Bedford will play, but if he does, it'll be as good for game back. It'll be his first game back even. Good luck, Bedford, keeping up with Nick Dacos. Number 5, Jack Sinclair, 110 to 130. Brisbane have been a great matchup for halfbacks, so expect Sinclair to be good here. Averaged 107. The Lions since she's averaged 107 against the Lions since 2022. This year against Brisbane, Riley Bice, 103. Blakey, 90. Butterick, 94. Sinclair, also quietly averaging 118 over 3 games. Woo! Didn't that go under the radar if you didn't have him? Number 4, Tristan Sherry, 120 to 140. I think that's a bit stiff on Big X Sherry. I think he'll score quite highly. He might even go back-to-back 150s like we saw from him last year. He's playing against Blackiston, coming off a 151. Need he say more? Need Mason say any more than that? Number 2 is the one that I'm going to say after I say number 3, Zach Butters, 120 to 150, coming off a 144 against Essendon. He should have a great day against West Coast, where he scored a 152 just 5 weeks ago in the Community Series against the Eagles. If it's anything like that, look out, captain option, look out. Number 2 is, of course, Harry Sheezel with the 125 to the 140. Essendon last year were here the easiest for wingers type players to, like this, who get around the whole ground, by far the easiest. 134 for Sheezel last year, and Essendon have given up 144 to Butters, 128 to Horne-Francis, 107 to Ward, and 91 to Newcomb. Mate, those are some big scores. But of course, number 1 for Mason's top 8 captains, Dane Zorko, 120 to 200, he reckons. 124 last year against the Saints, who have, again, been a great matchup for halfbacks. Ash, 137, Josh Dacos, 141, Houston, 120, Maynard, 119. Coming off a 142 and a 121. Should be great. And I do not disagree with him. Dane Zorko would be unreal. If I had the cash and I wasn't so worried about his hamstring awareness. No, sorry, there is no hamstring awareness. I'm putting awareness on him. If I wasn't so worried about that, Josh Dacos would be in my team. Dane Zorko would be in my team. Josh Dacos is in my team in place of Dane Zorko. Mate, I miss you, Mason. Lots is going on with me and the Off the Mark podcast at this time. So, without further ado, Mason is going VC Zorko into one of Sheezel or Butters as captain. Probably Butters for the safety. Sheezel is more of a VC. And he's just hit it bang on the head because I will be going Sheezel VC into Butters. I like it. I like the upside of Butters. I like the ceiling of Sheezel. I think it's the perfect captains this week. Now, of course, Mason greatly hasn't told me what his trades are this week, but I'm pretty sure I'll be able to tell you what they are, tell you who they are, and tell you what he's doing and what he's thinking. Because I'm pretty sure he's going, as most are, Connor Rozee, Christian Petrarca, out. And in comes Dane Zorko for him, and Brian Myers into the forward line. Now, we haven't spoken much on Brian Myers yet, because, quite frankly, he's just gone under the radar again. But he's put together an average of 105 for the season so far, scoring a 121 against the Gold Coast Suns in opening round, and then backed it up with a 90. Not the greatest, but still pretty solid. If this is a floor for Myers, this would be unreal. Now, plays the Crows today. Not the easiest of matchups to score against, but, I still think he's an incredibly reliable and good player for the Geelong Cats by any means. So, I think he's a pretty good option to bring in. The reason I like it more than that is because who else would we be bringing into the forward line this week? If we were to hold Petrarca, field 21 or maybe even 20 on field if you've got some issues elsewhere, you wouldn't have too much to go to next week either. Like, you've got, people are talking about a Connor McDonald, but people are talking about a Dylan Moore. Like, yes, but do we see the upside? I mean, you're talking forwards this year. Harry Shees was the clear-cut number one. Until further notice, Christian Petrarca was number two. And then most people would say, Sam Flanders, he's been great. He's been great for us. But guess who's been averaging more than Sam Flanders? It's Brian Myers. Consistent, priced at $1.012 million. A little bit expensive, but hey, you know what you're paying for. You know what he's going to do. You know where he's going to do. He's got a break-even of 83, so he might even go up a little bit more. 16.2% owned, so getting up there in the ownership. I'm sure many people have traded him in this year. In fact, 12,112 people have brought in Brian Myers this week, along with Houston being the number one picked, Zorko being the second most picked, Brian Myers is the third. Then it goes Nick Dacos, and then even a Josh Dacos there on the bottom. Mind you, the most traded out, Connor Rozee, Christian Petrarca, as we all saw. Dyson Sharp got injured, which sucks for the Bombers, but Farrow's been named up as a replacement, so he'll be set to make his debut for the Bombers. Errol Goulden, for those who didn't bring him out last week, are trading him out now. There you go. Playing catch-up, boys, unlucky. And Caleb Windsor, who I tell you what, I would certainly like to be trading out of my team. He's been traded out by 2,295 people who are just place him on the bottom of the most traded out this week. Myself, what am I doing? I've kind of talked about it. I've gone Connor Rozee to Josh Dacos for a little bit of a sideways, a little to scrounge up about 24k there to do that. And then you're looking at blokes like Christian Petrarca trading out to Brian Myers. I did not have the luxury of trading Errol Goulden last week and banking a shit ton of cash like a lot of other people did. So Mason's doing these moves this week with like 400k in the bank, I'm pretty sure. Pretty impressive, pretty bloody impressive considering how well he scored last week as well without an Errol Goulden, and to have this much cash in the bank. It's really good for him. Sucks for me. But I would like to go up to Zorko. I don't have the cash to do it. And the problem is, I don't see any other way to go about it. Like, you can't trade out Christian Petrarca for someone like a Cozzy Pickett. Nah. Sam Lawler, nah. Rochelle, maybe considering Jordan's gone out, but nah, you couldn't, could you? You couldn't. I don't think you could. I just don't think there's anyone we can go to. Like, a move some people might be talking about has been going from Petrarca all the way down to Todd Marshall. You could. Todd Marshall was seen limping out of training today, so we'll see when the teams are named if he's in, if he's not. That should be very soon, so I can wrap this up and head home because, jeepers, my voice is tired doing this, what do you even call it? Solo podcast. There we go. But yeah, it's interesting because you see some of the most traded out that people have are like your Caleb Windsors, your Lockie Blackiston. You'll be wanting to move those guys on really soon. And then even blokes like a Jack Carroll who's stuck on my utility, he's going to be a red dot soon. Like, he's not probably going to stay in the side for too long. He might even be one this week. And then you've got blokes like Milan Murdoch who's going out with an injury. We don't know how long he's going to be out for. If you've still got a Vicentini stuck on your bench, mate, all sorts of strife, like myself. So it's difficult to know what to do. But I think what you want to do is make sure your structure's where you want it to be. Make sure you have the rookies you want to have. make sure you've got blokes like a Darren Robertson on your forward line. Make sure you've got blokes like a Jagger Smith, even a Tom Myers, and hopefully a Jack Watkins if you played your cards well enough. Like, he's probably the number one trade-in target if we didn't have these two issues with Rosie and Petrarca for sure. After maybe a Nick Dacos. But like, there's so much I wish I could be doing this week that I just can't. Like, I've got Ed Richards sitting on my bench at $1,036, scoring average of 94. Like, I don't want that at all. I should have gone Bontempelli. I should have actually just gone someone who didn't have the buy. But here I am stuck with Ed Richards and can't get to Nick Dacos until next week. And then again, I'll probably have a forced trade then too. And I want to be getting rid of blokes like Blackerston, getting rid of blokes like Windsor, all of that sort of stuff. It's difficult and it sucks, but it's the situation we're in. So, for most people, I know they'll be fielding like, how do I say it, 21. I personally am fielding 21 because I've got English as a ruck with a bye, but I've also got Vicentini. Some people are fielding 21 because they don't have the midfield rookies with Milan Murdoch going out. Some people are fielding 21 because they've got a couple blokes like Sarong, Jacks, and Selwood in their defence, so they'll be fielding one of those guys on field and copping that one. So, it's just a mess. No one knows what to do. Sorry about that. A little bit of technical difficulties, and by technical difficulties, I literally mean that I was kicked out of the room that I was in, which is crazy because it's the off-the-mark office. I don't know what they're kicking me out of my own office for. Anyway, without further ado, the teams are here. It's kind of a blessing in disguise. You didn't have to listen to me ramble on for another 15 minutes, as long as it took. But here they are. Obviously, we know the teams for the Cats and the Crows, so nothing massive other than, your boy Jordan Dawson's gone out for the Crows. For the Pies versus GWS on Friday, we've got Pies in comes Darcy Moore and Jordan Howe, and someone Steen makes his debut. Will Parker was dropped, and Allen was dropped, and someone Buller was dropped as well. For the GWS Giants, in is James Leake, a forward defence rookie who we all liked from last year. Hannaford, out goes Buckley with concussion, and Harry Rowson was dropped. So that's tough if you had him in a week like this. Now we look into St Kilda in Brisbane on the Saturday game. In for St Kilda, Dougal Howard comes in along with Dan Butler. Out goes Anthony Caminiti with a hamstring, and Hugh Boxall has been omitted. Lucky for Jack Carroll holders, still there. This is tough for anyone fielding. In for Brisbane is Darcy Gardner, Logan Morris, and Zach Bailey. And out is Zane Zakostelski, omitted, which is dropped. Dan Addable's done his shoulder, and Tunstall has been dropped as well. So even if you didn't have Vicentine and you had Zakostelski, you're still fielding 21. That is so tough. For Freo versus Richmond, in for Freo, Brandon Cox and Jagger and Mira come in. Someone McDonald is injured, and Nathan O'Driscoll has been dropped. In for the Tigers is Trainer, Fall, Auger, and Conan Gray off of some good, impressive VFL scores. And out goes Noel Broad, Tom Lynch has done his hammy, Nankervis has also done his hammy, and Trezise has been dropped. For the Bombers versus North Melbourne, now, I was going to say it's a lot of changes, but it's not, it's just a lot of long names. In come for the Bombers is Farrow, Gresham, Sardo Hawley, and Archer Day Wicks. And out for them is Mason Redmond, did his knee. That was going to be a while. Newen has been dropped, along with Kondogiannis has been dropped, and El Achkar has also been dropped. So, Dyson Sharp still in the team, is what that means, most likely. As you remember from last week, I don't know the teams on where they're playing like Mason, but I'm pretty sure that means that Sharp's still in, which means you probably don't need to trade him. North Melbourne, in comes Core, Wardlaw, and Coleman Jones. Out goes Logue with a hamstring. Costanti has been omitted, and Jack Darling has been omitted. Oh, stiff from him there. On the Sunday games, obviously, for the Sunday game, it's tough. You know, you've got Lockie Jones isn't coming in. Ollie Wines comes in. Mitch Zadow comes into the squad. Will Brodie has been named to make his club debut. and Vicentini comes into the squad, as well as Lai. Out for the Power, Miles Bergman with a heel injury, Connor Rosie with a hamstring, and Todd Marshall is out with an ankle injury. Ouch. That one hurts. That one really hurts. All right, West Coast into the squad comes Lindsay back from last week, hopefully. Ryan Marich comes in. Malachi Champion comes in. Brock and Schoenberg comes in with, obviously, Harry Edwards getting concussed and Milan Murdoch, a lot of people did his hammy as well. For the Blues, Byrne comes in, Akers comes in, Jordan Boyd, Francis Evans, and then Cooper Lord is out with illness. Obviously, that's the squad. And for the Ds, Tom McDonald, Bailey Laurie, Max Heath, and someone cross comes in, and Disco Turner has done his hand, so he'll be out. So, yeah, big news for this. I think, you've got Marshall out for the Power. Zach Ostelsky, if anyone had him as their... what's it called? As Zach Ostelsky for their... as their R2 currently for this week with... Tim English or Brody Grundy on the bye. We also saw, I think it's kind of it that we saw, along with those massive news and massive injuries from most people that we've already had and we all kind of knew about. It's just, it hurts. It's a tough week, and all the best to you for getting out of this one, because I'm left with many questions. I don't know what to do, don't know who to play. It's tough. It's real tough this week, and I wish you the best of luck. With any luck, your round 3 teams are on the mark and not off the mark. And look, with any luck, Mason and I will be here on Monday. We might have given up. We might have thrown the computers in the bin. We'll see. We'll see you then either way. Thanks for listening to me for a whole 40 minutes or whatever it was. I know it's probably not the same without Mason, and I miss you too, mate. So please come back soon. Good luck with your gig tonight. Good luck to all your teams, and good luck to your fantasy teams as well, and we'll see you next Monday.